Hello and good morning, everyone. How are you? This is RK with Sacred Para. I hope that you guys are having an amazing and awesome day today. If your day has already gotten started, if in fact you're kind of like, getting ready to get your day started, good morning to you. Hi, One Barbie Girl. How are you? Thank you for joining. Good morning. So I'm here with you today so that we can talk about flashbacks. And I know I don't have all my glitz on today, and that's okay. This is what I look like. This is who I am, and I've been nursing a little bit of a toothache on one side of my face, and I debated even getting on here, but I was like, I'm going to push because I've had these notes for quite some time, and I'm excited to be able to bring this topic to you guys. So this is going to be probably a short live. We're going to be talking about flashbacks and how they can be used with our storyline. You can't hear me? Oh no. Let's see here. See if we can adjust it. You hear me now? You can now? Awesome. Okay. All right. We are back together. Thank you so much for telling me. I appreciate that. So we are going to talk about flashbacks. I'm so serious. Thank you so much, because it would have been horrible to film this and then record it and have it not at all have any sound. It would have been crazy. So I appreciate that. Talking about flashbacks and how we can use them with our storyline. So sometimes we, as the writers and the creators of what we're doing with our page, we can choose to omit the audience from the actual experience of witnessing our characters, generally our protagonists, go through certain trials and situations. It's our personal choice. We can show them our characters going to the grocery store and them bumping into an old flame, or we can choose to not do it at all and just talk about it. So we can always choose to show them what happened at the grocery store, or we can just have our protagonist, which is our main character, generally the good guy character, who's talking, and they can say what the experience at the grocery store was like, or they can just say, I went to the grocery store, and we don't hear anything about it, right? I'm thinking of a movie right now that is cleverly using flashbacks to such a beautiful advantage. And that would be, oh gosh, the name went right. Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus 2. The name was slipped and it came right back. Hocus Pocus 2. I haven't seen it, but I did watch like buku trailers about the movie and the spoilers. And I came to the understanding that one of the characters, I'm not going to give a name, but he happened to be a child trick-or-treating and witnessed the three witches being active, doing what they were doing on Hallow's night, and it inspired him to want to, I guess in so many ways, follow in their footsteps and, collect all their items and create this museum and make these wax candles out of the fat of a hanged man, something of that nature. So they were able to use flashbacks in order to create a whole new story that didn't exist before. So flashbacks can allow us to literally create a whole new movie, a new book, just a new storyline. But I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. But I wanted to share that really, really quick as far as with Hocus Pocus. So we can choose to not show what our protagonist is going through. It could even be our antagonist, but for the most part with the protagonist, we can choose to not show it. So this is most prevalent on shows like your comedy shows, your movies, plays, skits even do it, and our social media platform. Now, why would we choose to not show it? One, we may not even have all the information. Like maybe when we're writing that particular scene and we're saying that our characters can go to the grocery store, we hadn't even thought what happened. We just thought, okay, let's have our character out of the way so we can focus on some other characters and kind of give them the spotlight. Like maybe there's some drama that's brewing and we need to you know, have that be talked about, then we can't have all these characters in one room. So we eliminate them by saying this one has to go to the grocery store. But then we realize later on, we're like, oh, wait, there's so much we can do with that character having gone to the grocery store. Maybe they bumped into an old flame. Maybe it was somebody from high school. Maybe it was a nemesis. Maybe that's when they dropped their money out of their purse or out of their wallet and they weren't aware of it. And now down the line in your story, they have to pay a bill and they're like, oh, where did the money go? Kind of like on, what's that movie I love? I love that movie. Oh, goodness. It's a Christmas movie. What's that one Christmas movie that I love so much? It's a Wonderful Life. Oh. It's a Wonderful Life. I'm talking to my children. It's a Wonderful Life. Yes, they're up with me. Yes, It's a Wonderful Life. So that movie right there, although we don't see the flashback, but we do have the uncle who was supposed to have the money, lost the bank money. It makes me so upset the way that he lost it. But still, we find out later on how it affected the whole situation, to where, you know, Potiphar was in control. I think that was his name. Or am I thinking of the Bible? I think his name was Potiphar. But he would have been in control because of the lost money. So in this particular situation, you could use a flashback to show how the money got lost. Okay, so we may not even know at the time how we're going to utilize a character being absent. But then later on, we can kind of go, oh, wait, I want to work in this new storyline, and I can use the character going to the grocery store as a way of being able to say, this is my new storyline. So when knocks on the door and says, hey, you owe me money because remember we're at the grocery store, you nicked my car. Well, we didn't see that. Well, now we can use a flashback to show that, like, maybe this was a teenager who left out and didn't want to admit that they had a minor car accident, and they just came back and act like, oh, la, 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 everything's fine, as some teenagers do. And then there's a knock on the door, and there's, hey, you owe me. And now it has to be revealed through the use of flashbacks that this teenager hit the car of someone else when they were at the store. And I just came up with that off the top of my head. So this could be for a number of reasons that we do not show the scene of what happens. Like I said, one could be that we just don't really have the story with it. So we're just kind of like, let's just get the character out of the way for a minute, so we can focus on other characters. We can later choose to show the scenes of the character's misfortune or fortune. Well, it could be a fortune. Maybe they went to the store and they actually got a lottery ticket. They scratched it. They won. They didn't want to tell anybody. And so they kept it to themselves. But meanwhile, they're collecting. That was a fortune, right? Literally. So it could be a misfortune or it could be a fortune at a later date via the use of flashbacks. Perhaps we didn't show it prior because of the length of time. So a lot of times with your... Like, I love the show I Love Jeannie, and our children do too. I Dream of Jeannie. There we go. I Dream of Jeannie. Love it, love it, love it. But who's to say that, you know, he's saying I dream of Jeannie. Who's to say that he wasn't always caught in a dream? We're watching every one of these episodes, and they could all be, you know, a dream sequence, which is an idea that just flashed in my head. But who's to say that... you know, certain things don't happen, which has, you know, occurred with the show. Certain things happen in the show, and then later on, it gets revealed through a flashback. We just recently saw that on I Dream of Jeannie not too long ago, where they used a flashback scene with something that we hadn't seen. So, but they couldn't do it. That's why I bring up I Dream of Jeannie. They couldn't do it previously because they only have a 24-minute, you know, time that they're confined to. So there's only so much that they can put in to 24 minutes. And that 24 minutes is usually going to be the meat of that show. And so if they are missing something, then you got to come back the next day in order to see if it's going to be in flashback mode. Okay. So that's one of the things that we're looking at right there. It could be a time constriction. If you got a movie, it could be a time constriction. So you have to be able to figure out what you can fit in through editing, and what all you have to leave out. So flashbacks. It could be because of the length of time it would have taken to shoot or film that particular action, or perhaps we didn't have the proper props or technology. I've heard many different directors say, you know, because we watch behind the scenes, it's very important to us to be able to get all those wonderful details from writers and storyboard artists and producers and directors. That's just what my family and I enjoy doing. But we've heard many of them say that they didn't have the technology at the time, so they would have to wait on certain scenes in order to develop the technology so that they could create the scene. But meanwhile, they still have filming, right? They're still in production, so they still have to move forward with the production and omit certain scenes. And then when they get the technology up, they're able to go back to record those scenes, and they usually just use it through flashbacks. Or maybe, you know, they'll wait and get like a number 2 movie, and when they get that second movie, then they go ahead and use that technology, and they use a flashback scene. We've seen this many times, especially with Back to the Future. You know, that whole trilogy, we see flashbacks, and it has to deal with the technology use. Or maybe our hearts just was not into diving into the scene, or perhaps our hearts were too invested and needed some space to properly visualize the vision and make it tangible. So sometimes we, as the writer, the creator, we need a little bit of space from what we're writing, because we can be so invested into it that to actually put all the details of the scene can just kind of be overboard for us emotionally. So we need to be able to take that step back, write it forward, and then go back to the scene and just use it as a flashback. Or sometimes we can be, we can have too much distance to the scene and not really be as emotionally involved with the characters, and not be able to see the full vision because of our lack of investment with the characters. It can happen. You're not going to be drawn to each and every character that you have. There can be some characters that you create as writers that is so far left from you, right, personality-wise, to where you do not relate to the character. You can put some aspects of yourself into the character, most definitely, but you also realize, like, we're not the same. And that's a good thing, because as a writer and a creator, you do not want to have monotone characters. We've talked about this before, talked about this with other co-creators and writers, and I'm telling you, that is so important. You don't want a monotone storyline. You don't want your characters all sounding the same, doing the same, looking the same, because we're not all the same. Every single one of us are diverse as individuals. I don't care if we're all, you know, the same shade. In a room, we can all be the same shade in a room, but I guarantee you there's 50 people, you've got 50 diverse personalities who have 50 different ways of growing up. You know, we talk about, you know, these people do this as a culture and these people do this as a culture, not understanding about the subcultures, that each household is a subculture. And within each household are individuals who are understanding life according to their own perspectives. So as individuals, our personality are shaped and molded by what's around us, yes, and by our genetics, nature versus nurture. And what we need to understand is that we are each diverse as individuals. So you want your characters to also be diverse as individuals. And it is awesome whenever you create characters that you can't stand and you don't like and you wouldn't be friends with them, but you have them on the scene. Why? Because they represent the diversity of who people are as individuals. So you want that, okay? But you can have a character that's so far different from you to where it's hard to write for them. It's hard to be as detailed for them. And you're like, let me just move the story along. But then you go back in your storyline, you go, you know what? I think I'm ready to explore why you went to the store. I think I'm ready to explore how you going into the store and bumping into somebody that you knew can now have me introduce a new character. So you will see that character, even if you don't really care for them, as a pathway and key to developing your storyline further. And you can develop it further through the use of, you got it, flashbacks. All right, so Another point to make is that there are a plethora of reasons for why you as a creator, for you as a writer, may decide not to film everything. Or in our case, with our Instagram page, you may not choose to photograph everything for your storyline. So if you don't get a chance to photograph everything, it's okay, because you have this wonderful tool called Flashbacks. Maybe you don't have all the props at the time, because miniatures do cost money. I mean, just really, miniatures cost money, and if you're making it yourself, it still takes time. It still takes energy. If you're making it with clay, you got to have the proper oven. You got to have the proper molding clay to do it with. You have to have the proper paints. And then if you're a perfectionist and you're like, oh, I want it sewn this way, I want it, created this way, then you may end up wanting to repeat the process over again. So it's going to take time. If you buy it and you're like, money's not an issue, you still got to wait for it to be shipped, right? And if you're the person who likes to photograph daily and post daily, then if you're waiting for it to be shipped, then you may end up filming ahead of time on some things and have to wait for the shipment to come and wait for you to be able to create this awesome, amazing diorama to be able to then present to us through the use of photography your pictures of flashbacks of what happened, because your storyline still has to move forward, right? So regardless of what may be the holdup, you have that choice to use flashbacks. So you never miss the story, and we as the audience never miss the story. So there are a plethora of reasons for why a writer or creator chooses not to film everything. Now, of course, it's much harder for someone that's writing a book or even a storyteller, because we rely on details, right? But you can still choose to omit certain details of a story. You can tie it in later through the use of flashbacks. And the reason why I say that for someone that's writing books or someone that is a storyteller may be a little bit harder is because the reader greedily wants it all. Like really, we as the audience and the reader, we want it all. We want all the details. But depending on the craftiness of the writer, they can still transcribe all the information later on in the text. And I'm going to give you guys a really quick example with my character, Nita, who's married to Tony. And Tony and Nita are really the beginning of this whole entire Sacred Para account. And I had Nita go through some emotion, as this writer. She went through some emotional trials, and she had a nervous breakdown. And she had to spend some time in an institution. And now she has like a 24-hour around-the-clock nurse, Nurse Gazelle. And we'll get into Nurse Gazelle on a later date. As my dad used to always say, he would, always say, about getting into stuff on a later date. But Nurse Gazelle is a conversation for a later date. But she does have a nurse 24/7 now because of the nervous breakdown. I never did show her in an institution. I never did show you guys her having to, actually be hospitalized and what that was like. At the time, I didn't, because I just really didn't have the time to do it. I didn't have everything I needed to create a hospital scene, and I don't know how connected I felt to Nita as a character to be able to simulate all of the details of what that would have been like for her. The more that I get in practice of using her again and having her in my storyline, I do foresee flashbacks of her time being hospitalized and being institutionalized, being incorporated into my storyline. So guys, this is my time. Hi, husband. He's coming back from training. You guys have an awesome and amazing day. And as always, thank you so much for joining. You can write. Let's normalize adult play therapy and adult play. And don't doubt yourself as a writer. Anyone can write. That's my motto. And of course, I've gotten that from Bob Ross. And I believe it to be true. If you need any help with your fitness goals, nutrition goals, reach out to Coach Play. That's with an I and not a Y. You can find him on Instagram. So you guys have a good day. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.